Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, investors. Scott Carson here again with another amazing episode for you guys here on the podcast. And today's special guest is somebody you definitely want to make a notice of. You want to pull out that piece of paper, take some notes down. If you're listening to the podcast, hey, that's great, take some notes, but then jump on over and watch the video. Scroll on down, click the video link, because you're going to want to take some notes from this guy. This guy's over 30 years of helping investors not fuck up their transactions, all right, not screw up their transactions. And if you're in Texas and looking to do subject tos, wraparound mortgage, assumptions, which is a little trickier here in the state than other places, then you're in the right place with the right episode and the right person to teach it. Not me. I've brought on the man, the myth, the legend, the fifth generation Austinite, who's not only kicking ass and taking names, but helping, like I said, so many thousands of investors do these types of specialized transactions correctly so you don't screw stuff up. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Alan Ceshker from the Ceshker Law Firm. What is going on, Alan? How you doing today, bud?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, doing fantastic. That's quite an introduction. I'm humbled, but doing great, and I appreciate you letting me be involved in the podcast. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem. When we were, we always like to take Q&As and questions and ask our audience, what do they want to learn more? What topics are they looking for those insights on? Especially being here in Texas, one of the big things, hey, what about sub twos? What about wraparound mortgage? What about owner finance and stuff like that? And so I was like, we got to get you on. So that's why I reached out to you on Facebook, and I was glad Jessica responded, and glad to get you on the calendar here to go through and answer questions for folks out there that are doing things. So talk about a little bit how you kind of became, I say, the go-to guy in Texas for these types of transactions.
Yeah, I would like to say I mapped it out from the inception. However, the 2007, 2008 recession kind of nudged me that direction, thankfully. And so, back then, the only thing that existed was seller finance for a good period of time. And I had just started my title effort February of '07. By September of '07, and everything was going gangbusters. All my numbers, I was beating them and da-da-da. And then September '07 hit, and all of a sudden we came to a screeching stop. And so I had to figure out if I was going to abandon title effort. My mentor said, no, don't. And so I converted over to this seller finance world. And then, the world came out of the recession and everyone went back over to their respective zones in the title arena. And I didn't. I just stayed there. And I had a coach at the time. He said, hey, don't try to be the best on the field, be the only one on the field. And so for a long time, we were not the only one. There's some other folks out there that do know what the heck they're doing. But I'm not competing with all of the regular folks out there. We're just competing in our smaller arena. And so that's how I got started, and then just kept with it. And it's, I would say it's an obsession. I enjoy it. I enjoy learning more about it. I mean, the landscape changes on us, and so you have to keep learning. And so I've just enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree that the landscape's changing, and we're seeing so much chaos, especially in the markets right now, too, with people wanting to sell, and there's a lot of property available, but also people being locked into low interest rate mortgages they don't necessarily want to walk away from. And although there's some comment about having portable mortgages, making the news today in some things, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And we've got, what is it? They say something like in the next 6 months we'll see a inverse aspect of people with people that have an interest rate on their mortgage of 6% or greater, being greater than those that have sub 6% or that low interest rate. But those low interest rate mortgages are great opportunities. Especially if the borrower's in trouble or distress, maybe to take over and
Yeah.
sub two wraparound mortgage. There's some different opportunities for that stuff, right?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because it's opening up opportunities from the investment arena, but also we're a tremendous outreach over there to the agents and the folks trying to teach sellers, hey, you don't have buyers. It's because they don't want a mortgage at 6.5%. You've got 2.75. Go out there and sell this thing 4.75, cash flow on 2% of it, arbitrage it. And so that's been extremely successful. I term those consumer wraps when they're going that way.
Yeah, no, that totally makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, not a lot of realtors understand that creative side of investing.
Well, they're illegal.
Yeah, exactly. It's not inside the box, so they're illegal. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
It's
what
funny.
about that due on sale clause? The bank's going to foreclose on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what's cool? I don't know if I talk about it today in my little presentation, but the fact that Texas brought the mortgage wrap legislation helps a ton. Because first off, someone says it's illegal, and I just say legislation doesn't teach us how to rob banks. They're not teaching us to do something that's illegal, i.e., the wraps. And also, it helps whenever you're dealing with, sellers, telling them, nope, there's legislation in place that tells us how to do this. So it helps. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah, no, total game changer being able to state that to make people feel a lot more comfortable about it because that's the thing that we see because we get a lot of lists in where people have low mortgages. The banks don't necessarily sell us the distressed debt at a big discount to make sense for us. So we'll approach it from reaching to the borrowers and say, hey, there's opportunity here. Legislation is completely legal to do this. Let's just create a win-win solution for you and get you out of a bad situation. And in 24 months, you get your credit's back on track. If you haven't paid a few months, you can go purchase a new house. Won't get you out of this wrap situation. Then you go buy a new house and your credit's safe versus seeing a foreclosure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not often I thank the legislature for doing what they do, but I did on that one.
Yeah. They kind of screwed us a few years back on the no lease options beyond 180 days, you
Golly,
know. Um, but I
I
don't
don't
think, I
know.
think
I don't know
part
what
of,
they're thinking.
yeah, well, I think that partially is, if I remember the story correctly, there's some South Texas cousin of one of the Texas legislators got taken advantage of a 20, 30,000 down payment option fee and then didn't fall through. And option was fee wasn't refundable, and so they got past his law, and the Texas investors didn't show up to complain about it. So that's
Yeah.
what.
Well, I mean, there was a need for some type of correction, but dear
Sure.
Lord, they corrected.
Yeah, corrected on a knee-jerk reaction, stuff like that. But anyway, I know we've got a lot of stuff we want to go through here, folks. Some questions that people will be asking. I've got a list of some stuff here. I know folks have asked. I know that you've got a bit of a presentation, so why don't we dive into that? We'll go through that together, and then we'll open up for some questions on the back end. If you don't answer them while we're going there, how's that sound?
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Let me share my screen here,
Yep. Yep.
and
Now, one of
then
the great things that you do as well, and I just want to bring this up, is Alan actually has started teaching classes specifically here in Austin and stuff like that, but it's good for the entire state there on the sub to the wrap, how to do this correctly. Got something planned for later or beginning of the new year, stuff like that. His last class was in April, but definitely something that you want to take a look at if this is one of your strategies here. Don't go out and try to wing this off of legal Zoom or use Chat GPT trying to help you come up with your documents or your solutions. Talking to an attorney is one of the most important things to do it, and this is the guy for you. So you've got your presentation, take it away, and I'll jump in with questions, and we'll go from there, Alan.
perfect. Perfect. And I'll just warn, I've got a little bit a different way of doing things, phrasing things and things like that. So I want you to, jump in and say, why the heck are you doing that, Alan? What's up there?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll get started here. I always like to do a quick introduction, even though we've gone through it. Let me see. So who we are. You mentioned Jessica, and so I have to always introduce her. She is the absolute point person when dealing with our office. And so if you have a question for me, question on structure and contract and what have you, and you reach out, you are going to get Jessica. Can't really overemphasize the importance of her. So there you have it. So we're law offices and also a title office. In Texas, it's called a fee office, an attorney-owned title office. And you'll hear me make a recommendation in regard to how to deal with title offices. We do close throughout Texas. I have to say we close the normal files also. Our marketing was so dang good for a while. We took a look and realized no one was bringing us their conventional stuff. They said, no, this is just a regular transaction. So we closed somewhere else. I said, dear God, we've done too good. So we do close both as a quick little disclaimer since we're being recorded and real quick the scope. So I can't detail all the aspects of mortgage wraps. I've got
Sure.
a 4-hour certified course, which actually takes 5 hours to go through. So I should probably change that certification. But we're going to go over all the basics and all of the substantial basics, which includes contracting, which for some reason is people's biggest concern. They can actually find a wrap, negotiate for it, but then it comes to contracting and they're like, oh Lord, how do we do it? And it's actually very, very easy. Landscape, we talked about that. We're going to change it. The dual and sale clause, there's some issues on that. Flooded market with buyers. We talked about consumer wraps a little bit. That's end user seller, end user buyer. And then we've got this novation stuff. Obviously, that's a little outside the scope of today, but we can utilize wraps as opposed to novations and make it simpler. So I'm going to talk about that. And then there's some problems on insurance and some other documentation. That's what we're going to go today, and hopefully some more stuff via questions that y'all's folks have.
Yeah, sounds
So
good.
I said there's a little bit of a difference. So terminology, I created this definition. I tried to create the simplest definition for a mortgage wrap so people can, conceptualize them. And it's just seller financing. I'd love to put a period right there and leave it, but I do add that seller financing and the current mortgage isn't paid off. And that's the end of the presentation right there.
All right, good stuff.
But I mean, in all seriousness, I'd get a new escrow officer come in and they're like, "Hey, I don't understand these mortgage wraps, Alan." I go, "It's just seller financing, and the attorney is going to draft up the loan documents like they do for a regular transaction. And it take about 6 months, and they roll in my office eventually. They go, "Oh, it's just seller financing." So you have to conceptualize as that property is conveyed, not lease purchase option, contract for deed, rent to own, anything like that. And that mortgage just stays there in place. And the seller puts on a new hat. They put on a lender hat, and that's all they are. They're no longer an owner. They're just a lender in this transaction. So that's the bottom line basics of this thing. And I'm going to just say it again. It's just seller financing. Don't think of it as anything else. You can learn a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be going over today, and you might not even really need to. Just knowing it's the key, but you don't have to sit there and implement some of these things. Our office takes care of it. So I've changed some terminology. When we used to have the term assumption, and that meant the mortgage company comes over and they say, "All right, hold on a second. Who's going to be assuming this thing?" And they would qualify them and take them through the qualification process, and then that loan would actually change from that one borrower over to new borrower. Those don't necessarily really exist anymore. You've got them in the VA arena and every once in a while, but when we say the term assumption, we're not saying qualified assumption. When I say assumption, I mean non-qualified. Lender's not involved. And I should really emphasize here, when the Texas legislature passed their legislation, and I was with them. I was lucky enough to be with Senator Salazar's team when she was going through this, and they said, "We don't want to get approval from the lender because we know that would crush wraps, and we don't want to stop wraps in Texas." And then they said, "Well, should we notify them?" And then I said, "You notify them. It's going to increase the stopping of wraps. If that's what you want to do, then that's what you got." And they said, "No, we don't." So they specifically considered authorization and disclosure and said no. So it's a don't ask, don't tell transaction. I don't use the term sub two. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So assumption, whenever I say it, just if you like the term sub two, conceptualize that. And that's when you're purchasing the property, you're assuming the exact amount of the loan. Seller doesn't have any embedded equity, as I call it, and they're out of the game in terms of dollars and not owed any more funds. I don't use the term sub two. I'm going to talk about that in a second. When we're saying mortgage wrap, that's different than assumption / sub two. Wrap is a bigger note wrapping around a smaller note, and there's a bit of cash flow in there. There's some embedded equity, and that seller is owed more funds monthly. It's the way we use it as an investment structure to cash flow. Acquire the property via assumption, seller finance wrap, and keep that cash flow in between. Now, to simplify or complicate things, I call them all wraps.
Yep.
An assumption's a wrap, a mirror wrap's a wrap, an exact wrap's a wrap, a sub two's a wrap. And the reason for that is, from a legal standpoint, I'm going to draft a note and deed of trust for my wrap or assumption. We used to have the deed to secure assumption, and we didn't have a note and deed of trust, and all sorts of problems can come about from that. So we abandoned that. The people who know what the heck they're doing abandoned that, and we have a note and deed of trust for our assumptions. So conceptually, from a legal standpoint, they are wraps. It's just like I called it, exact wrap or mirror wrap, which I love those terms too. But I steer clear of the sub two term, and there's two reasons for that. Reason one is legally it's not correct. It means I'm taking over the property and I don't have a legal obligation to pay that mortgage. Obviously, I'm going to as long as I want to keep the property. But if I don't pay it, there's no problem. There's no legal obligation. A and B, I'll be brutally honest with you. The market is flooded with sub-2 offers. And so I like to try to differentiate myself from that so they don't just throw my offer away. So I'll call them assumptions. I've created a new product. I don't think I discussed it today. I call it the Trust Acquisition Program. And bottom line, it's just using a trust as a purchase, but it also distinguishes my offer from a normal sub-2 that they're getting 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 of.
Mhm. Now, do you think it being in a trust, if it's obviously transferred to a trust, it gives a little bit more comfort, less bank lender oversight on seeing that, it's kind of common for people to move properties to a trust versus it being a
Yeah,
new deed?
yeah. So there's the last 4 or 5 that I've purchased, I placed 2 of them into a trust. So I'm not converting over to using a trust every time now, but used to, I could sit in front of a room of 100 people and say, who has a personal experience with a due on sale issue? And I'd have 1 or 2 people raise their hand and they would say, yeah, an agent of mine told me that they had one. I was, no, personal. I want and I could bank on it every time. Not one hand would be up
Right.
and correctly saying that. Now I'm gonna find 5 or 6 or 7 hands in a room of 100. And so we're utilizing the trust to avoid that. I'm gonna talk about trusts, not extensively, but what we're dealing with and how we're dealing with it.
Sounds good. Awesome.
All right, so I want to talk about contracting to dispel this issue of I don't know how to contract for a wrap, and I think I'm going to do a pretty good job. I'm going to start with the assumptions because that's actually the difficult one that is simple. We've got a problem with paragraph 3 of the TREC 1 to 4 when we're doing an assumption, and that's because it's saying put an exact number here. And so what are we? We're on the 13th. So on November 13. My payoff amount is, $250,245. And tomorrow it's going to be more because of interest. And then if a payment's made, it's going to be less. And then if an escrow account adjustment occurs during the pendency of closing, it's going to be a lot more. Legal fees. So bottom line, there ain't no way to know what that number is come
Right.
close date. And so I just invented what I call a math word problem. I say, see paragraph 11, and then paragraph 11, I just talk about the purchase price as the non-qualified assumption of the payoff amount of the existing mortgage or mortgages at time of closing. And so now we get rid of that ambiguity, so lawyers don't come in and start saying, you didn't have a certain term there, we're going to bust out. But it also takes care of, if I'm wanting to assume 256,000, and that goes down. Well, I want to assume the smaller amount, not give my seller $2,000 or what have you. And that's what we had occurring with these. And so we created this, and then usually buyers paying all closing costs. And then I put a disclosure in all of my mortgage wrap transactions, assumption transactions, just disclosing, hey, this is a wrap. And I'll pause here for a second, I guess. This disclosure should be about the 5th one that we're dealing with. And what I mean by that is you've educated this seller or buyer and you've told them what a mortgage wrap is. You've talked to them about the pluses and minuses, pros and cons, problems, things to be scared of, things that are great with them. And you have this in writing, minimum text message, email. And the reason for that is if something goes wrong, and if you're doing enough, something will go wrong.
Yeah.
Buyers and sellers have this weird amnesia thing that occurs at about year 2 of a mortgage wrap. And so I've got one right now. It's kind of funny. So they filed a title insurance claim. The buyer did. And the buyer says it wasn't disclosed that this is a mortgage wrap. And so I see this and I'm laughing because for 2 reasons. One, I know that it was disclosed 19 times in my documents alone, in which they signed or initialed 11 times. So I have no idea what occurred before me, but you sure as heck knew it was a wrap, A. And then B, I didn't think about this at first. Someone had to tell me I'm too legal and structured. They said, okay, cool. Who cares? what's your damages? So you got a mortgage rate lower than what you could have gotten. That's your damage. So this guy he has amnesia and wants to bust out of the transaction a couple of years after starting. So this type of disclosure, and that's, the most important thing about real estate investing are the 3 Ds: disclose, 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 to avoid litigation.
Yeah, you took the joke right out of my mouth. Yeah, disclose, 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 just like location, location, location.
It is. It is. If you want to avoid litigation, disclose, disclose, disclose.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the most important things you can do. Had that happen multiple times. Well, you disclose. Is this your initial? Did you not date this and sign this? Yeah. Okay, then.
I like some of the folks who are doing Zoom meetings where they talk about everything, and that's the most powerful thing you could have.
Oh yeah, recording. It's better than deposition there, right? Oh, this is not what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, it always looks good whenever you have yourself contradicting yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Amen to that. All right. Well, yeah. So this makes sense. Great await adjustment to figure out. So hey, the payoff is updated basically at closing there for you. That's what you're taking over, not having to pay out anything more than you need to.
And what's important here is that's it for the Trek 1 to 4. I wish I could make it more complex, but I can't. I mean, it's easy. You do have an addendum. Oh wait, let me talk about price no-nos. So we just now received a contract today. Price to be determined, because it's an assumption and they don't know what the exact, and that right there means you don't have a contract.
Yep.
Because you can't leave a material term of a contract omitted, and then enforce that contract. So that doesn't work. Payoff doesn't work. Payoff's closer. Mortgage, we see that sometimes. A set number, that's a problem. So the best practice is that one that we talked about. The only other document we're going to have, sorry, I had my language in paragraph 11 there. There's one thing you can add over there in special provisions. This is one of the little tidbits, problems that we see come up every once in a while. Seller hasn't disclosed that there's a HUD lien or some type of second lien or what have you, or we didn't have the actual payoff and we were going off of seller's number. I like to embed in here, if the payoff of the existing lien or liens is greater than X dollars, then I have a right to bounce out of that contract, because we've had people come in and say, all right, this is an assumption, we're going to pay the mortgage amounts. And then that HUD lien was found and the seller was kind of savvy and sued them to force them to go through with the contract. So that's important.
Yeah. Get out of HUD jail, basically.
Get out of the loan modification, HUD, first time buyer programs.
Yeah, the DPAs, down payment assistance programs. We see those.
Exactly. And I used to think that the sellers were fibbing, but I kind of found out they're not. They got some down payment assistance. They haven't been making payments on it. They didn't understand the full aspects of that mortgage. So I don't think they're fibbing. It's just a natural issue, a natural mistake.
Yep.
All right. So again, I wish there is a loan assumption addendum that we have. I always say use ours, don't use the Trek form, because it has some vestiges of the past. Talks about qualified assumptions. So I don't like that form. Just get ours. Just reach out to Jessica, get ours. But all you're doing is putting the nuts and bolts of the mortgage, the payoff amount, the interest rate, the monthly payment, the mortgage company name, and that's it. So again, I wish I could make it more complex, but it isn't.
Nope.
And so now we get to the easy one, mortgage wraps, a bigger note wrapping around a smaller note. Here, so let's assume these terms. I have no idea where I think I'm buying a $210,000 house, but at any rate, these are the terms I've used for years. So it ends up that we just have the 3A is a down payment amount, just like regular seller finance. 3B is the new mortgage amount, 190, is going to be the promissory note, and then you add that together for the 210, and use the seller finance addendum. We're not even mentioning the mortgage in the wrap contract. It's 100% the exact same as seller finance, and that's why I call these just seller finance. So I guess same thing I said before. I wish I could make it more complex, but this one's actually as easy as it comes.
Mm-hmm. So basically, if you look at the numbers, once again, payoff's 120, purchase price is 210 on this fictional house in Austin. Buyer's bringing 20 grand to the table, so that's why the owner finance note is the 190, right?
Yep.
And basically they're carrying a home mortgage for 190, which is a $70,000 difference between the 120 that they owe and what they're carrying. So they're making the difference in that their principal is getting purchased down on that one, or getting bought down that 120, just like it is on the 190 with every payment provides not an interest only loan. And the difference is probably a little bit difference in the interest rate too, as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So
Yeah. And so the only investing I do, I have this joke and it's not funny. In 2018, I tried to do some fix and flips, and I invented a new investment methodology called fix and flop. And I ignored every one of the things I tell my clients to watch out for and such. And so bottom line, I don't have time to do a fix and flip. So the only investing I do is I acquire a property via an assumption, and then go out and seller finance wrap, and then it cash flows anywhere between $200 and $1,100 on the ones we have right now. 200 has a bunch more equity in it. That's why I'm fine taking the 200. The 1,100, now I think about it, has a bunch of equity in it too. But I'll take a low monthly cash flow on them if there's a bunch of equity in it. So that's what I do, and that's it.
now, not to get off track here, with you taking these over assumptions, how hard is it for you to market to find a buyer for these?
So once you go out there and put on MLS seller financing, you've increased your buyer pool. I'll be honest with you, it used to have a bigger effect than it does now. As to why it's decreased a little bit, I actually don't know. I thought it was going to increase with interest rates bouncing up. Everyone is chomping at the bit to get a lower interest rate. And look, I'm providing that here, magic. But I think the market's in a cooled state right now. It's slow, whatever you can call it, whatever you call it. I think buyers have kind of just tucked in general.
Yeah.
And so you're not catching their attention. But once you go out there and put on MLS, you're gonna get a buyer.
Mhm.
You're not getting above fair market value like we used to. You're selling at whatever that fair market value is these days, and you may need to tease a little bit more. And if you pick up one at 3.5%, maybe not mark it up that much. 4.5 raises eyebrows. 5.5 or 6 doesn't as much. So you got to just play with it and tweak it and see what you can get.
What kind of down payment are you seeing with some of your deals? 10%, 5%? What are you kind of looking for as your benchmarks?
That's a fantastic question. And I was just talking with someone today on my little rule of thumb. So as an absolute minimum, I want 6%. And what I'm talking about is 6% net to me as that seller. And my logic there is that gives me 2 months of payments while I go and recover the property. It's going to take me about 2 months. It gives me 2 months of payments to be using for the lawyer to go do my foreclosure, evict if needed, what have you. And then 2 months of payments for me to sell the property again. Obviously, it could take me longer, it could take me shorter, but that's my little rule of thumb. What I want is 20, but I find on these conventional buyers, on the lower value houses now, on these consumer wraps, we sold a $2.3 million house, and they're bringing $600,000 down. So you can get more on these consumer wraps, but I'm usually sitting somewhere between about 7 and 10% down.
That's good. Makes sense.
Yeah, I want more.
Right?
I
Right. Who doesn't want
more.
more? But that's still good, a sizable chunk of equity. Somebody bringing is an investment, in the deal versus $500, $1,500 down.
Yeah.
That's not a good. That's almost a guaranteed default on that. And that's the last thing you really want on these two is your new buyers to default on you.
Yeah, and that's actually my answer to the people who are very, very sensitive or scared about, what happens if they default to me getting this house back? I say, well, make it so that they can't default. What do you mean? Make 25% down. They're not going to default on that. I mean, they'd be crazy. Market might adjust what, 5-6% down.
Right.
You're still, yeah. So I always tell them you can avoid the foreclosure by taking a bigger down payment.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, if they do default, you've got the down payment to pay the attorney fees to foreclose. And we all know Texas, you can foreclose and the fastest in the country.
Yeah,
So
yeah. If someone does default, I've had to take one house back out of all the ones that we've done. and we took that one back 3 times. I, ca- I called it the Amityville Horror. I have no reason whatsoever, and the things that happened to the buyers. I mean, it was serious stuff. You know, one guy got into a real bad wreck, totaled his truck, got out of the hospital, got in a real bad wreck, totaled his truck, and so he bounced out. And one dude was dealing with criminal stuff, and one people had medical stuff, and so it was held in my wife's IRA. And I said, honey, we can't keep hurting people. We got to sell this house conventional. And so we were spec to make about 35,000 on that thing and ended up making 151,000 because we got it back 3 times and sold it.
Now, do you ever see like a deed in lieu and escrow in some cases, or is that a no-no?
I do. And I, used to not like them. And the reason I didn't like them is because if challenged, that deed in lieu of foreclosure is voidable. It's called an executory instrument, and if the seller wanted to fight that, they could. And so I didn't like them because of that, but I realized the power of them in terms of negotiating, making sellers feel happy. So I have just a big old giant disclosure, and I'm talking it's big as Dallas, that says, hey, this can be challenged and it's voidable and da da da. No one cares.
Right.
No one cares.
Right. But it's also something they don't realize that a lot of times they can walk away. If it's a bad situation, instead of dragging out, walk away and move on somewhere else versus trying to drag it out.
Yeah, yeah. So I like the deed in lieu, I offer it now to my sellers, and so we'll get that. We keep it in escrow. We have escrow agreement says if it's late 60 days, we can file it. And I've never filed one without calling the parties saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Da da da. And we've had to. I think we had to file. I know of one. It might have been 2, so it's not very common.
Sure. Awesome.
I like
Good stuff.
I like them. Now that seller finance addendum, this one's easy. Put the amount of the note, interest rate, amount of the payments per month, beginning date, and maturity date when the note ends. If you do have a different maturity date from amortization, you got to clarify that in your special provisions. But this right here is easy stuff also, especially if you're using an RMLO, which we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Yeah, and
so
this is the terms of the new note, not the underlying existing note, just the term of the new
yep.
note that's being wrapped. Yep.
Yeah, new note. And then you got a second lien situation. We just use another seller finance addendum. And so it's a piece of cake. And we help on this. We don't help with the amortization. You got to get yourself a lender to look at that. What's your P&I? But I've got a fancy little Excel spreadsheet I downloaded. I think it must be 15, 20 years ago, and I've just never upgraded it because it works.
Yeah, those amortization tables don't not a lot into them, but they're a pretty easy tool to use.
Yeah, yeah. And then I've got some additional concerns. You need to detail if escrow is required. If your underlying mortgage has escrow is required, period. But if it doesn't, then you decide if you want yours to have escrow or not. And you have to say if your new note that you're selling to your individual has a due on sale clause, I always include in mine because I want to know if they sell it. I'm going to say yes, they can sell it if they want to. I'm fine 2 people owing me instead of just one. Need to true up your escrows. There could be a shortage, could be an overage, and that needs to be credited. This is very, very important in a conventional wrap transaction. If I'm assuming the mortgage and paying the reinstatement and catching it up, not important. I'm paying that back escrow. But if it's a conventional one, your escrow account's not going to be perfect, so you do have to true that up, and then include my general disclosure. I kind of hammered that pretty important, but it's important to disclose everywhere that this is a wrap and there's a due on sale clause.
Yep, awesome stuff.
And then here's where that equity partnering comes in that would work instead of a novation type agreement. It's what we used before novations came in, so it's not necessarily new. But if you're going to provide any type of funds over to the seller, and this can occur, catching the mortgage up, paying for some repair, paying them money to move or what have you. Anytime you're expending any dollars at all, you want to acquire the property. Get that property, assume it, And then you can get a JV agreement that says what we're going to do with the money whenever we sell this property finally. I had an email today, as a matter of fact. Guy said, "Hey, I had to help this guy catch up on his mortgage, and so now we need to see about how we're going to structure this thing." And I said, "Dear Lord," and so I was reading through the email, and I thought, yeah, maybe he just paid 5, 6 grand to catch this thing up. $66,000.
Wow. With no
No,
type of deed, lien against the property, anything like that, huh?
nothing, just bare,
Oh,
just bare.
I had
I,
I had a widow reach out to me about 6 months ago, Alan, and her son reached out actually and was trying to collect on 8 notes that her husband had left him, but there was no amounts, no property
oh,
addresses, just no lien attached to a property. It was just basically a signature loan, and the guys had taken off, and they can reach out. I was like, I'm sorry, but these notes are basically worthless. There's nothing to go on these things, and yeah, drawing up on a napkin's not a smart thing.
yeah. I mean, I actually have a loan with a good friend of mine. It's gotten to be a little bit too big. So I said, "Hey, can you sign off on these documents?" And he's like, "Why?" I go, "Because if you die, I want to make sure I'm known."
Yeah.
He's
Right.
like,
So,
I understand, Alan, thanks."
yeah.
I mean, I've fallen to that trap too, but man, that 66,000 hurt when I read it.
Yeah, yeah, it can get a little bit bigger there, but I mean, you're just doing to prepare in case something happens. It's not anything personal. It's just, hey, in case of an act of God, you die or I die or anybody dies, let's make sure everything's covered.
Yeah, I was told I have to stop saying "in case you die," and so I now say, in case anyone runs off to Madagascar. That
I like that one. In case you go on a extended vacation, I can't hear from you.
Yeah, I don't know, but it is in case people die. I
Yeah,
don't care what I say.
yeah.
And then on these JV agreements in this equity partner type structure, it's funny. I've seen everything from 90-10 to 10-90 on the splits. And this one guy, that was his business model. He came in and said, "I just want 10%. Seller, you can have 90% on this thing. Let's get going." And so obviously after they get their dollars back and then split in the 10-90. But it was a good business model. I mean, it was great. He's
Yeah,
now
I mean,
doing it in
that's a
Alabama.
that gets probably a lot more people to buy in, realizing they're just giving away their equity. They're actually going to have some money coming to them off the deal. That's definitely it will sound a whole lot better versus just somebody just taking over the whole thing and not giving anything for equity if they're in a position, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was genius because you tell a seller, "Hey, I'm giving you 90%. I'm going to take care of all of this stuff, put all my money into it." Man, that's a no-brainer. He he
Yeah.
he did great. He's killing it in Alabama now.
Oh, don't doubt it. That's awesome.
And then you sell that property and divide everything up via that JV agreement. So it's not rocket science, but it's tried and true.
Love it.
And then I'm going to talk about a hybrid. Do we know what a hybrid is? I don't like them.
Well, you've opened Pandora's box. You got to explain them now.
Yeah, I know. I can see certain reasons for them to exist, but what you're doing is it's really a wrap. And so let's say 200,000 is owed. I'm buying it for 500,000, and let's say I'm putting 50,000 down. Well, that means there's 250,000 equity in there. And so what they're doing is they're doing a $200,000 assumption and then a 250,000 seller finance wrap. So they're breaking it up. Usually what we would do is just have one $450,000 wrap, but I can see their logic. What they're doing is if you want to sell one of the notes,
Yep.
now you can. And so I recognize that. And then additionally, if you want to capture the interest rate of that 200,000 note, as opposed to having, 5.5% on the whole 450,000, and you've got 2.75 on that 200,000, then yeah, that makes sense. Also, I can mash these down into one seller finance and still take advantage of that 2.75 or what have you. I don't do it much anymore because the damn hybrid is beating me. The reason I don't like it is it's a waste of money. I'm drafting up 2 sets of mortgage wrap documents. We have two recordings of the deed of trust. We've got 2 liens on there now. And you take this thing over to a title office that doesn't know what they're doing. Dear Lord, they're gonna be scared.
Well, the thing too, you're trying to sell that second lien. Second liens they're not nearly as attractive as a first lien. I would rather take a complete wrap about the whole thing as buying one lien as the senior lien. Not really technically the senior lien, but where the underlying wrap note gets paid off. So I'm technically in the first lien position at that point. Trying to buy a second position is gonna be a much bigger discount because it's in a second lien position.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Let's get these hybrids out of here.
Yep.
I on these, you're getting with an attorney to assist on this. Whenever I say you can draft your assumption contract or you can draft your wrap contract, yeah. With these, all right, go ahead and get with us. And one of the good things about our office, and it's kind of the thing that we sell ourselves on is you're going to send us your contract before everyone signs off, and we're going to review that, and we'll do all that for free. Other title offices, of course, can't do that and won't do that. But my reason for spending my time and not getting compensated for that, if it doesn't close, what have you, is I want the strongest structure that we can get at the outset, as opposed to trying to fix stuff down the line.
Oh, that's Dad used to always say, do it right the first time. Instead
Yeah.
of having to do it a second time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like fixing things as much as I like making sure things don't break.
Yep.
And so this is probably number one reason I say close with an attorney-owned title office. There's a dozen reasons, but so you have your structures in place. Some special concerns whenever we're getting the note, the current statement, the payoff, and if it's behind the reinstatement, we're no longer using our authorizations. I'm just a little bit more sensitive to alerting the mortgage company of anything. And so I like to get on a conference call with the seller, the borrower, and just talk with them. What I do is the seller says, I'm authorizing Alan to speak with y'all, and y'all are authorized to speak with him. And then I just ask for everything from the mortgage company. And if every once in a while, Skippy wants to ask me why I'm asking for this stuff, I tell him to quiet down and do what you're federally required by law to do. I don't like when they do that. They're sticking their nose and stuff. I'm just like,
Yeah.
just do it. Let's continue on. So you use that method, a little conference call with the seller, and then get that accounting for the escrow as we talked about. And when we're making a payment to the mortgage on a wrap or issuing a reinstatement simultaneous with close, we may ask that payment be sent by another party besides the title office. And the reason is and I'm talking about, 2 or 3 occasions out of hundreds, we'll have that cause a little bit of an issue. We had the title office ask for a payoff one time, and it was a small bank, and they called their borrower and said, "Hey, what's going on? You're going to pay this off already?" Because they wanted their mortgage in place,
Mhm.
And the borrower, the seller said, "No, no, no, I'm selling it via wrap. That mortgage will stay in place." We said, "No, please don't do that."
Well, but
Uh,
it's also too when you see like if somebody's behind by a couple months, the smaller banks, they're the ones they're opening the mail at the same time. It's not like a big Bank of America, Chase, or Citi, where it's just kind of huge departments that are not making anything on it. It's you're 3 months behind and a check shows up from somebody else's bank account or somebody else's checking account. That can throw a little bit of a flag, like what's going on with this.
yeah, yeah, with certain lenders and banks and such, which we'll talk about here. So this due on sale issue, let's describe what it is if you're new to this. With inside the deed of trust on just about every mortgage that there is out there, there's going to be a due on sale clause, which just simply states, hey, if you sell my collateral, I have the right to accelerate the note and make everything due. And so it's funny. My daughter, she works with my office, and so she came to my office one time and she goes, "Hey, Dad, I don't know if you saw this, but look, in the deed of trust, I found this." And I said, "That's cute, sweetheart. If you could attend one of my Rap University classes, that'd be good also. But that's a due on sale clause, honey. And yes, they have the right to. They just don't know about the transaction. They don't care about the transaction, and they don't call it due most of the time." And my quote 3 years ago was in 0.00005% of the cases we had a due on sale issue, and so that's a lot of zeros in front of that. Now it's 0.00009. So it's gone up by almost double.
Yeah.
Not a lot still, but since we're seeing a little bit more of it,
Hey, you got to be careful there. Media might take that and say due on sale clause enforcement's doubled.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I actually watched a little YouTube thing about that, how the media will distort the facts like that. But I am utilizing the trust we talked about a little bit just earlier, and it what it does is it appears to comply with the Garner St. Germain Act. Garner St. Germain Act says I can take my property and put it into a trust, and as long as I remain the beneficiary of the trust and I remain living in the property, then the lender cannot act upon that due on sale clause right. So obviously we're not remaining as a beneficiary, and obviously we're not really remaining as the occupant of the property. But the problem is no one knows that, and it's impossible to confirm that unless you come and knock on the door and say, "Hey, who lives here?" So it's apparent compliance with the Garner St. Germain Act, not actual compliance. You need to be careful there. And so as long as you're doing your trust correctly, you're going to be good. And we're going to talk about the structure that I have. I've got a proprietary structure that I don't know if I can say I created it. I hired a trust attorney that really knows trust law, and he no clue in regard to wraps. And so match him and me up together, and we were able to develop a very, very good mortgage wrap trust structure. I do call it a due on sale trust because it doesn't provide all of the other stuff that trusts do, estate planning, liability protection, and things like that. It's a due on sale trust. And I'm going to detail that structure. Do not download the trust forms that there are out there. They'll work until there's a problem.
Right.
And you probably can't get your homestead exemption for that end buyer. Might not be able to get checks issued to the right parties. There's liability concerns in regard to liens against the seller if they occur post sale. So there's a bunch of stuff that we fixed. And so we have a pretty good proprietary structure now. I'm going to talk about when we use them. I think I talked about the structure. If not, I will. So home loan serve is a known problem. What they're doing is on mortgages that were reinstated, they're going back and seeing if their borrowers are still the owner. I have no clue why the heck they're doing that. Home Loan Serve is a loan servicing company. They get paid by units. So it seems extremely counterintuitive that they would say, well, we don't want to serve those ones. No, they want their $50 reinstated. So it seems extremely counterintuitive that they would say, well, we don't want to serve those ones. No, they want their $50 per unit. So I don't think it's home loan serve. And then you dig deeper, and I'm kind of being a nerd now, and I apologize, but you dig deeper. So Deutsche Bank has their tranche of 5,000 loans. They're not going and telling home loan serve we want one of our loans to go away. So I mean, I just want to call up the owner of home loan serve and say why, but I haven't found out yet. I've handled 2 cases with home loan serve that actually rose to the attorney level. And I asked the attorney, I said, hey, this attorney out of San Antone, I said, hey, we're going to get this all fixed for you, but can I ask you, why does your client care? And he goes, well, it's a violation of the deed of trust. I go, no, I understand. But from a business perspective, why?
Right.
I mean, why do they not want this to exist? He goes, well, you violate the deed of trust, and therefore they can act upon it. You know that, counselor. I go, dude, I don't think you understand what I'm trying to do here. I said, look, I'll come down San Antone, buy you a scotch, and let's have a discussion about this. He goes, I don't drink scotch. I said, well, that's our problem. And so I just moved on. I knew I was barking up the wrong tree there.
Well, it sounds like some attorney got involved trying to make their $250 or $500 an hour fee to add some extra work to somebody and raise the flag up when really the flag didn't need to be raised in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah. Now, if he had gone back and like I actually asked his client, hey, why do you care? And they say, well, think we might have a problem if it's sold. No, you don't. So he would have lost his client and not gotten his money.
Yeah.
So others, end user seller, end user buyer, I call these consumer wraps. They're not as resilient to problems in the future. So I can fix a due on sale clause issue. We do a little deed flip flop game with them. But end user parties don't necessarily like playing that game. And then also if your seller is in Madagascar and we don't have them, then I can't do my deed flip-flop. So you may want to use a trust at the inception there. Small banks and credit unions, like you mentioned, those they're not watching, they just might see.
Mhm.
And then if they're I was going to say if they're dumb or uneducated as to this, which is true, but I can't say that since we're on video. If they just don't understand all the aspects of it, they'll knee-jerk react and say, "Oh, we got to do this." And then if there's been incorrect contact with the bank before, we do get those emails. We're closing a mortgage wrap transaction. Email comes in and they say, "Hey, I talked to my bank about this and they said I can't do it."
Mhm.
And that goes back to the 3 Ds that didn't occur with the investor that was talking with them. And if your party's just risk averse, they don't want to mess with it. And then, like I said, after a dual sale clause issue, we'll do a deed flip flop and go back into a trust to protect it. So I know we, went over quite a bit. I think, I'm going to go over my structure. This stuff is, there's no way that we're going to be able to fully understand all the aspects of
Right.
it, but hopefully it generates enough interest and understanding so that you can ask the right questions. So my trust structure, the way it's a little bit different. We usually default to the name of the trust being 123 Main Street Revocable Trust. We tried to get, Sally Seller Revocable Trust, but the sellers didn't like their name being used. So we default over to the property address. And that's pretty much where we stand every time. The homeowner's insurance, now you got to make sure you're using the right one. I've got a wrap out of California that I have to go fix, and they didn't use an insurance provider that knows what the heck they're doing. But your insurance is going to be in the name of the trust. It's actually the beneficiary buyer that's going to be under that as the name. And then your beneficiary is the buyer. You can be an entity, and I suggest you do use an entity as a beneficiary for the liability protection. And then your trustee is going to be a buyer. Sometimes my office is, our office is going to be the trustee, especially if you're out of state from Texas and we're providing that trust. And then it can also be an entity, not as important there. An entity as the beneficiary is important for that liability protection. And then my office is the grantor creator of the trust, settler of the trust. There's a reason for that, for liability protection. And then you got to make sure over there on your Trek 1 to 4, your trust is now the buyer. So if you have your contract, Bobby Buyer from Sally Seller, and you roll into the office and you learn about trust and you want to change that, you got to amend your contract.
Right.
So your trust is now the buyer of this thing.
That makes sense.
So that's my structure. Obviously doesn't explain every dang thing there is to learn about it, but it gives you a good idea of what the heck's going on.
Great stuff.
And then the insurance, as I talked about, I say here's how it's done with no exceptions. Insurance is the absolute #1 reason for mortgage wraps to fail. The insurance doesn't get put in place correctly, and then that snowballs into problems. So you have to use a proven provider. We have 3 providers that we use right now. We had over the past approximate year and a half, we added 2, and they failed. So even though I tried to educate them exactly what was going on, they just didn't get it. They didn't get the importance of it, and they thought, well, we'll just make the change. I'm like, no, you rang the bell. So we have 3 still. We'll try to grow, but we'll see. And the structure that we're talking about, I'll parrot the words that the insurance providers tell me. Seller is going to cancel their insurance. You can't insure a property that you don't own. Buyer is getting their new insurance. Seller has to be listed as an additional insured, not additional interest. We kick it up a notch. It used to be additional interest, and then we learned we can actually put them as an additional insured. And then lender obviously has to be a mortgagee clause. We put the seller on their mortgagee clause, so they're getting notice if there's any type of default or cancellation of the insurance. And again, the trust is the insured if you're utilizing that trust. And I say no exceptions here. I don't know of any other way to do this besides this. If there is, that's cool. I'm willing to learn. But until then, do as I say, believe me later.
Well, the most important thing about that, I'd say, is obviously seller is the mortgagee clause. They're being alerted. They stay on top of it. they're going to know if the buyer isn't paying the insurance because they're going to get a notice on it. And
Yeah.
that's just, you say disclose, but it's also that conversation or that correspondence is taking place along with while that transaction is going on too.
Yeah, and this I would say this has helped me sometimes. I had some folks, and they would renew their insurance just a day before, and we've already gotten the notice, hey, your insurance is running out, da da da. And at first I was like, oh no, it's not insured. It was. It just that notice comes out a few days or maybe week or so before. So it's great to have that in place, like you said, just keeps it safe.
Yep. Stuff.
And then I've got a hour-long presentation on the laws and complying with the laws. And so we're obviously not going to go through all that right now. And if I start running long, just let me know, man.
You're doing good. You're doing good. We're fine.
All right. So what I've done is taken that hour-long presentation and said, hey, here's how the hell you comply. And so if you want to learn more about it, reach out. We'll dump information about Dodd-Frank, Senate Bill 43, the Finance Code, Property Code, SAFE Act, T-SAFE Act, and all that. But here's how you comply. And I'm going to say this because it's not necessarily what they intended, but it's the way it was drafted, and then went into effect January 1, 22. You have to be an RMLO, a residential mortgage loan originator, a licensed loan originator, in order to do more than 3 in a 12-month rolling period. Not use, be. So I don't agree with that, and I didn't agree with it when they were trying to pass it. Everyone said, "No, Alan, that's not the way the commission's gonna interpret that." And I'm like, "Okay," and then they are. But and then provide your 5016 disclosure. Do this whether you're on your first one. You don't need to wait until your fourth one in a 12-month period, and that's just a form. And they were good on this one in the Texas Property Code 5.016. They didn't say, hey, we want you to disclose some of these items. They just laid it out. And so we have that form. You can reach out to Jess and get it. And then no balloons. This is, again, bottom line compliance. You can have balloons under certain circumstances. Your RMLO will tell you when you can do that. But in order to comply, this is your baseline level compliance. And then no arms. Again, you can have adjustable rate mortgages under certain situations, but here's how to comply. And that's it. If you do those 4 things, you're in compliance with every single statute that exists. Now, I have a second slide. Instead of being an RMLO, you can use what we call correspondent lender. You close the transaction through a licensed lender, and then it gets assigned and transferred over to you. Scott, you're obviously incredibly familiar with what I'm talking about there.
Yep.
And so that means that a licensed lender did close this thing, and then they transfer it over to you. And then the other items, provide the 5016, no balloon and no arm. And this is also going to help you over in that note selling, note buying world. Now you have the chance of getting the highest value for your note. And I'm obviously not talking to you, talking to some folks out there.
Yep.
You know this stuff.
Yeah, but it totally makes sense. That's one of the great things about that. As I was saying, using RMLO is going to make you much more valuable. That paper much more valuable on the secondary market for sure.
Well, and I dig risk shifting. So if someone wants to get mad at someone, I'd prefer it not to be me.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
Go to the RMLO. Talk to them. It wasn't me, man.
That's the truth.
All right, I got a couple of tidbits if we've got time.
Yep.
So change the contact information for your wrap lender. Do that. We provide an authorization, a power of attorney that can be used for that, but you can certainly use that, but do it with the borrower on a conference call before closing. And also, I don't think I put it here. Get the online access. And people are like, hey, that's sensitive information. They don't probably want to do that. But I just say the loan servicer requires this information in order to service a loan. If we don't have that information for them, and if you want to, if I am using a loan servicer, just give it to them, bypass me. But you want that online access, much easier to make changes. The power of attorney, sometimes people will say, well, I sent the authorization of the power of attorney into the lender. I said, okay, what do you need? Well, nothing. I was just letting them know I'm authorized on the account. I'm like, no, we don't. I mean, Listen,
Don't
uh,
wake a sleeping dog.
don't wake a sleeping dog. Don't talk to your wife about bad stuff if you don't got to talk about bad stuff. You don't want her mad. Just let it lie. So yeah, don't say that. The POA is used for my power of attorney that I draft up. That's for endorsing escrow refund checks or insurance claim checks and things like that. It's not for now it does have in there embedded in it because sometimes they won't take the authorization and then I'll send the power of attorney because they're like, oh look, we have a power of attorney now and we'll listen to them. So be careful and then use that power of attorney. You may have to show the bank that power of attorney to deposit escrow refund. And there's associated problems with that. So if it doesn't work with the bank, then I always say go over to a check cashing place. But make sure you have a good relationship with your bank. So I'm with Wells Fargo, not known to be working with people, but I'm with the same branch that I go to every single time. And I go up to Larissa and I say, how you doing? How's your son doing? How's everything going? She asks how my daughter's doing, the one she likes, not the other one. I don't know what's going on there, but I go with it. And I even took pizza to them on a Friday, ride my hoverboard in there, bring my dog all the time. So get to know your bank, and then you can deposit checks however you want. Heck, I could throw a piece of bark of tree and they'll deposit that for me now.
Yeah, I totally echo that. Our banker at Wells and our bankers at Frost have been glad to do that for us because we have a relationship. So,
Yeah, it's important.
yep.
And then I've got another tidbit. This first one's in relation to negotiating. And I mentioned it earlier, actually. So, tell your sellers there's federal and state legislation telling us how to do wraps. So, this isn't the Wild West before, and we're not some other state that doesn't really know what they're doing. This is Texas, baby. We are the most regulated mortgage wrap state in the US. So tell them we've got legislation. And then watch out. I gotta say this, watch out for property theft and wire fraud. If y'all think something's sketchy going on with the seller, stop, take a look, tell title office, listen, we've had 5 attempts at property theft, not just wire fraud. We've had a ton of wire fraud efforts, but property theft, a seller not owning the property, trying to sell that property. So be careful on that. And then after a wrap, stay in contact with your parties. Just check in with them. Obviously your end buyer is paying you monthly. Tell the seller, hey, everything's still going good. Remind them you can still qualify for a mortgage. This isn't going to be affecting your debt to income ratios as much as if we didn't sell it seller finance. So just keep in contact with them. I call it the everything's still going fine contact.
Yep. That sounds good. And you raised a point that somebody asked a question like, how do they show it if they want to go get a new mortgage? Do they need to show the payment streams on the wrap mortgage to the new lender that it's that underlying payments being covered, or how do they kind of figure that out?
Yeah, they want the promissory note and usually evidence of 6 months of timely payments.
Yep.
It's just like a rental,
Yep. Yep.
just like a
Okay.
rental. And
Perfect.
so that's something that's good. We didn't know about that a long time ago when we were young and dumb, but certainly know it now. And every once in a while, I'll have someone say, "Well, my lender's saying that's not going to work." Good. Move on to the next lender.
Yeah, it works. As an ex-mortgage broker, that would always work out there for you folks. You just got to show
Perfect.
payments as being covered. It's just another little door that the underlying or the new lender that you're trying to take just wants to prove that, okay, it's being paid, it's taken care of, and all good.
I'm going to steal a snippet of that video right there and send that out to my folks. That's
Well, that's
perfect.
that's always the thing. I was taught as a mortgage broker. When you get started, you got to think when you're trying to get a new loan, it's like walking down a hallway with all these doors and doors, the value and the title and liens and payments, all that stuff, rental income. You got to prove all that stuff up. If you've got all those doors closed and checked off, it's not an issue. If you don't have it checked off and the door's open, then that underwriter's got to go in there and peek around. And so I love what you've talked about today because you talk about closing doors and putting a sticky. Hey, all's good, all's good, all's good, right all the way down the hallway to closing.
Closing the door and putting a sticky on it.
Yep,
That could be a new saying right there.
there you go.
I appreciate it. And then I have a random one. I want to avoid earnest money disputes, and they're big. And as a seller, I don't want to have to mess with getting that earnest money if my buyer walks. As a buyer, I don't want to mess with it if my seller doesn't close. And so, if you're a seller, have that earnest money released to you at the expiration of the option period. And then as a buyer, don't have it due until the expiration of the option period. That's one of the best ways, but the absolute best way is some magic language. Just add this as an addendum. And essentially what it's saying is we're releasing my office from the release of the earnest money to party A or party B or what have you. And so, in Arizona, they have a statute that mimics this. I'm not real smart. I don't use AI yet, but I can certainly use Arizona law. And so I just copied some of the language there. And so when this is embedded, if we have a missing seller and the buyer wants their money back, title office is locked in. We can't. We have to get seller and buyer to release. They have to sign off on every release. And so this allows us, obviously, I'm not going to utilize this to release dollars in a way that's different than they should be released. It just allows me to act when we have one party either missing or not acting the way they're supposed to act. We have sellers all the time that will say, well, I know they terminated during the option period, but I don't think they were going to go through with the transaction anyway, so I'm not going to release it. But it's not the way it works, bud. And then
now, are you seeing normal option fee and earnest money on these? What, $100 and $1,000, or what are you kind of seeing the amounts being for that?
It depends on the motivation of the seller, if they're distressed or what have you. So we've got the $10 earnest money, $1 option. No earnest money is needed for a binding contract. So if you are using the 10, stop that, use 0. And then even the conventional ones on the mortgage wraps, if they're not a consumer mortgage wrap, you're looking at $500 or $100 for the earnest money, and $100 for the option is probably high.
Now, are you doing any property inspections on the properties for your transactions before you close on them?
I have to think back to my last one. If I work with one wholesaler and he takes care of my inspections, but my last one was actually just ours. And I believe I used my wife and stepson for the inspection on that
There
one.
you go. Hey, when you've done enough of these, you know what to look for. You know what I mean?
That sounds dangerous. You're not going to ever hear an attorney advise you, make sure you get your wife or your stepchild to go over there and inspect the property.
Send the dog by and smell for anything that's dead in the AC. Right?
Yeah. So, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, I guess, is the answer to that one, darn it.
Okay.
I feel bad.
That's okay. Well, you know what? Like I said, when you've done enough of these, you don't pay him for inspections. You know what to tell. You're going to end up fixing some things along the way, but
and yeah, complete disclosure on that one. We were walking into it with a fantastic amount of equity, and so anyone would have seen if there was something big enough that was going to crush the deal for us.
Yeah, exactly. All right, good stuff.
All right, I'm going to talk about our events real quick. We have our second Tuesday Power Hour. It's a 12 o'clock event, again, every second Tuesday. And we just have, back in, I think it was January 3, we've had these for several years, but I said, we're going to be substantive this year. I'm not going to just, dial it in. And so this next one is keeping safe, getting rid of the risk before and during contracting, tips, tricks, and pitfalls is what I call it. It's on a third Tuesday because this week was Veterans Day. And so we're on the third Tuesday. We'll go back to the second. So reach out if you want to get information on that. And then I have a weekly Ultra. Ultra stands for Ultimate Law Title and Real Estate Advising, and that's every Wednesday at 12. And that's more of a just free for all time with the attorney, time with real estate investors, real estate brokers, RMLO. Trying to think. Oh, some veteran investors that really know what the heck they're doing out there. So that's kind of a fun one. It's Q&A. We answer questions that have built up over the past week, and then also anything that's involved. So if you want to join that, you can go to ultrarei.com and get that information, or just reach out to Jessica. A quick little blurb about what Ultra is. I'm not going to hammer this. I don't like trying to sell myself, but this is a very, very good program if you want to learn how to do this stuff and do it correctly and avoid problems. And so we've partnered with some folks that are taking us from coaching at the very beginning, negotiating the contract with the potential lead, all the way to post-close reparative measures and everything in between. So if you want more information on that, there's contact information for Miss Jessica down there at the bottom left, and our contact information. So I'm going to let you take over, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
No, but that's the thing I wanted to bring up. You have offices across Texas, and you close all across Texas.
Yeah.
If people are buying in Texas, they have ability to close with you also remotely too, right?
Yeah. Before COVID, I would say almost 70% of our closings were remote, mobile notary. People just knew. And then after COVID, everyone learned. I mean, I would say 90% are remote now. The ones that aren't remote are usually the consumer wraps, conventional real estate closings and things like that. But the wraps, the investor closings and the wraps and such are remote. And then we also have, if someone wants to close at an office location, I'm old enough so that I've got lawyers everywhere, and we can go use their office. And so we've got several relations in all the four big cities, and then probably have some, now I think Gonzales, Texas, and down in the valley, and up in
All
the
over the state.
Panhandle.
All over the
Yeah,
state.
I'm old enough to know a bunch of people.
That's good. That's good. Now, once again, I wanted to make the clarify. Besides just doing assumptions, wrap, substitutes, he also closes traditional transactions across the state of Texas. Do you also do you guys have somebody on staff there, or have somebody that does handles foreclosures, or will do foreclosure litigation for a lender as well too?
Yeah, so I have three attorneys that are of counsel with me, and two of those handle the foreclosures. I don't do them anymore. I will occasionally. I try not to, but yeah, I would say I haven't seen anything real estate related that us four attorneys can't handle.
Sure.
And then if you want to branch out and, I've got a family law issue, or I've got a patent issue, or I've got this, again, I'm fortunately old and have lots of friends and folks.
Well, awesome. Well, that's just been a wonderful episode, Alan. Thank you so much for coming on. I guarantee you, the listeners and people watching this are going to learn a lot. I know I have, and looking forward to doing some more of these types of deals and closing some transactions with you as well here, especially in the new
Perfect,
year.
perfect. I appreciate it. Again, I want to thank you for letting me join on. Again, I'm a nerd about this stuff, like talking about it, but also love getting the information out there so the industry is stronger and knows what the heck they're doing. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, definitely. That's the whole idea is educating people how to invest in Texas, or how to do substitute wraparound transactions, or assumptions, as you like to call it. So, guys, thank you again for listening in. Make sure you go take action. Reach out to Alan. Reach out to Jessica. What kind of the question that comes up? What kind of scotch you drinking?
Macallan 12 Sherry Oak is where I settle mostly, but I'm an equal opportunity consumer.
There you go. I love it. Maybe we'll see a bottle in the mail for you as well.
All right, so hey, I appreciate it. This is fun.
Thanks, Alan. All right, guys and gals, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the show. Make sure you take action. If you've got questions, reach out to his staff, reach out to his office. Nobody better in the Lone Star State to help you with these transactions and close the deal. So go out, take some action, and we'll see you at the top.